Welcome back to another episode of Investing Explained. Here's today's question.
I love this question. And I promise you, Stig and I are so far from being geniuses. We are not even close, my friend. We're there learning with everybody else. You know, the thing I would tell you that is really, really important in my personal opinion is so many people look at the stock market in particular and they think that they're going to make a ton of money in the stock market and they're going to become rich that way by being some stock market genius. And what I would tell you is to not focus in that area and try to develop that thinking. What I think you need to develop in the kids, if they're interested in money and how finance works and that kind of stuff, is you got to really teach them to want to own their own business and create their own product or service and to own that equity. That is what's really, really important. You know, whenever I think through the investing equation, I always think of it like this. I can create my own equity through a product or service that I create to add value to society. Once I make that money, I can either reinvest that money into this business or service that I've created, or I can then take that money, if I don't have any good ideas on how to grow that business, then what I do is I take that money and I invest it non-operationally. And when I invest it non-operationally, that's the stock market. So that's where my money goes, where I don't have any good ideas that I can do on a micro level. And so I would tell you, have them get out there, start trying to think of how they can create a product or a service around something that they love to do, because that's where they're really going to add a lot of value to themselves. And they're going to build this base of capital that's really, really hard to do anywhere else on the passive investing side. Because think about it. The market has huge multiples. That means you're going to get low returns when you employ your capital into publicly traded businesses. You go into the private equity space and you get much better multiples, but it takes a lot of money to buy a business in the private equity side. So you really got to kind of start something from the ground up. And so whatever you can do to try to develop the entrepreneurial spirit, that's what I would focus on with your kids and kind of explain to them why that's important. Is because, man, when you're working for yourself and you're building equity for yourself, there's nothing else like that. But when you're going out and you're getting paid, say you're working for somebody else and they're paying you $50K a year, you're building 100% of the equity for somebody else. And that makes a big difference in the long run.
Yeah, I really like your approach about setting up a business. And one thing I would like to add is I think it teaches the children one of the most valuable thing in life. That's how to deal with rejections. If you try to set up your business, a lot of people would just say no. And in a way, it's probably easier for kids to deal with that than for a lot of self-conscious adults, because they're used to getting no's all the time from their parents typically. And I think it's such a valuable thing I wouldn't say immune. I don't know if that is healthy, but definitely being able to roll with the punches whenever it comes to dealing with rejections. And also think that setting up a business will give you the respect for money. It's really, really hard to teach. It's something that I think life is the only thing that can teach you. I also think that if your children don't want to go in that direction and it's more like the job with the pros and cons that it has, I would like to highlight something like delivering newspapers. It's not only because it is the most common denominator for jobs that billionaires used to have, which is actually a fun stat in itself, but I think it teaches them a lot about being paid by a newspaper. Like, you're not paid by the hour, you're paid of how efficient you are. And I really like that. And I think that's a good thing to give to the next generation in a very competitive environment.
You deliver newspapers, that's hard work. It's teaching you the value of just grit and hard work.
It's hard to find a lot of good, at least for me, it's hard to find a lot of good resources for children that you ask for. But there are actually this one site, it's called Warren Buffett's Secret Millionaires Club. We will link to this in the show note, but this is something that he endorsed. He'd been on the show multiple times, and it's a series of 26 online short web episodes that teaches children about money. So I think that might be a place to start if I needed to give a handoff to a resource. That's it. Preston and I will continue explaining investing, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button.